How's everyone doing today? Welcome back to On the Ball. Welcome back to another episode of Review the Prem, where we're going to take a look at each and every game over the weekend, react to our predictions as well. And me and my brother have a scoring system between us at the moment. It's 285 to myself, 279 to Sim. And the way the scoring works is 5 points for a completely correct scoreline, 1 point for a correct result. And the star man, once you pick that man, you can't pick them again for the rest of the season. And it's 5 points for a goal, 2 points for an assist. And let's get into the first game, which was 2-0 to Man City against Everton at the Etihad. And Sim went for 2-0 to Manchester City. I went for 3-0. So Sim gets a big fat 5-pointer. I get 1 point for this one. And look, Everton made it really difficult for Man City in this game. Man City, I don't think, had a shot on target until the last 10, 15 minutes of the game when the inevitable happened. Erling Haaland steps up, scores 2 goals in those last 15 minutes, and Man City took home 3 points.
Yeah, pretty much as expected. I thought Everton made a bit of a slog. It was the first time, I think, under Pep Guardiola that Man City have failed to have a shot on target in the first half, which goes to show how difficult Everton were making it. It wasn't for the lack of dominance, because obviously Man City were well on top in the first half, but Everton defending resolutely, making sure they weren't giving away any easy chances. But when you've got a goal machine like Erling Haaland at your football club, it's always likely that at some point they're going to knock the door down. It was 2 brutal finishes from Everton's point of view, just absolutely hammering the first one into the back of the net after the corner fell to him, battered it past Pickford. And the second one was a classic robotic Erling Haaland shoving off a defender and coolly finishing it into the far corner. And Erling Haaland is back amongst the goals now, 16 Premier League goals now for him. And Man City just don't look like they're going to be stopped at the moment. I think ever since the turn of the year, they've won every single game, and they're really hunting down Liverpool now, just a game in hand and 2 points behind. So definitely putting themselves right in there when it comes to being favourites for the title.
Absolutely. Second half Man City, like clockwork every single season. Look, Everton made it hard for them, but I think it was a bit inevitable that Man City were just going to win the game eventually, and that's exactly what happened. In terms of Everton, they are sitting in the relegation zone now, 19 points, 1 point behind Luton. And Luton do have a game in hand, but I think that game in hand is against Man City. So it's very tight down at the bottom there.
Yeah, and there's also rumours of another further points deduction for Everton, which will definitely have them worried. And they're now winning 6, I believe, for Everton. So considering they're on a good run of form going into 2024, that downturn will worry them a bit. I'm still thinking, they're playing well enough and they're good enough to, get over the line, but they need to start winning games again.
Yeah, I'm just trying to have a look at their next few fixtures. They've got big game, West Ham at home, Man United away, and Liverpool at home. Their next
doesn't get
games.
much easier.
Yeah, it's difficult games coming up. But let's go on to Fulham against Bournemouth. It finished 3-1 to Fulham at Craven Cottage. A bit of a surprise result, seeing as what Bournemouth have done so far this season. But both teams came into it not in great form. You went for 2-1 to Bournemouth. I went for 1-1. And it's kind of how you expect a Fulham win to come against Bournemouth. Bournemouth having a lot of possession, asking a lot of questions, but Fulham catching them out on the break and scoring goals.
And that's exactly how it panned out. I think Bournemouth on the day, going away to Craven Cottage, had 25 shots on goal, but it wasn't enough to break Fulham's rear guard, only really scoring from a corner, Senesi getting a consolation. But Fulham on the counter-attack making the most of their opportunities, and especially at home when you've got the crowd behind them and you're facing a Bournemouth side who like to go forward, who like to take the game to you. I thought that would suit Bournemouth, but they didn't like it at all. Fulham were quite resolute. They made sure that the chances they were conceding weren't good quality chances, and Muniz was able to stick away 2 poachers' efforts, really. One getting in front of the goalkeeper after a good pullback, and the other one a great cross to the back post from Willian, sealing the game. The opening goal was a bad mistake from Bournemouth, so Bournemouth's defence really costing them with some costly mistakes in this one, and Fulham take a really, really good win for them. I still think the trajectory of both clubs is different. I think Bournemouth are the better side, but Fulham came away with it, and you can't give Fulham a 2-goal head start, and that's what happened.
Is there a bit of a cause for concern for Bournemouth's form? I mean, they haven't won since the turn of the year. Their last win in the Premier League coming against Fulham in the latter stages of December. Is that a bit of a cause for concern?
I mean, I don't think so, because where Bournemouth expect to be, mid-table is a good position. So I do think right now they're 8 points clear of the drop zone. That's all they'll care about. They're only 2 points below Fulham and 5 points away from Wolves in 11th. So they're closer to the mid-table than they are the bottom, and as long as it stays that way, they won't be worried.
Let's go on to Anfield, where Liverpool played Burnley. It finished 3-1 to Liverpool. Both of us went for 4-1 to Liverpool, and I think, look, Liverpool obviously heavily dominant throughout the game, but Burnley did have their moments, Actually, it could have become a bit scary for Liverpool at times, but the quality did shine through. Darwin Núñez getting on the score sheet once again, and Liverpool's firepower telling once again.
Yeah, Burnley will be a bit annoyed because they probably created more than they thought they would create going into this game. They did get it back to 1-1 on the stroke of half time, and although maybe not deserved, they did get there after Jota gave them the lead. It looked like it was going to be a thumping, and in that second half, Fofana had a couple of really presentable opportunities to put Burnley 2-1 up, and maybe it would have been a different game if they would have taken one of those. They didn't, and unfortunately for Burnley, the pressure did tell for Liverpool. Harvey Elliott coming off the bench and grabbing 2 assists and making a really good cameo. Obviously, Luis Diaz and Darwin Núñez getting on the score sheet as well, and it ended up being a comfortable victory for Liverpool. But on the face of it was comfortable. But Burnley will probably leave Anfield thinking they probably wouldn't have get better chances to have got a point considering the chances they missed. So really disappointing, but it keeps them really cut adrift at the bottom, and they really need to start picking up points. Obviously, they're not going to be going into Liverpool. These aren't the games they're going to be judged on, but they're still 13 points after 24 games, and they're 7 points away from Luton still. So time running out for Burnley. When it comes to Liverpool, keeps them top of the table for now. They'll probably be happy with the win. It wasn't the best performance, but at these kind of games, you just got to get the job done.
Yeah, and that's exactly what they did. All 3 of their front 3 scoring on the day: Darwin Núñez, Diogo Jota, and Luis Diaz. And look, we are in for an almighty title race, aren't we?
And now Salah's back. It looks like full training, so they've been able to cope without him. Apart from the Arsenal game, I think they've won every other game, and scored lots of goals. So they showed they can cope without Salah, but now he's in. That's just going to add even more firepower to the front line.
In terms of the relegation battle, do you think Burnley are gone, or do you think they can salvage something?
Yeah, I think they're gone. I don't see them catching up 7 points on the teams above them. I just think they're going to have to put a run together of 3-4 wins, and I just haven't seen any evidence that they're able to do that. I do see them playing some decent football, but they're just too easy to carve open at times, and I think that's going to be their undoing. So I think at this point, look, 7 points, and we've seen teams claw back before, but it's very rare. I think Burnley are not a bad team, but I just can't see them getting 7 more points than Everton and Luton and Forest. I think it's unlikely. So I think it's really, you're getting into like under 5% chance at this point of staying up.
I agree. Well, there's a chance, as Ange would say.
There's always a chance.
Let's go on to Kenilworth Road as Luton lost 3-1 to Sheffield United. Both of us going for Luton wins. I went 2-0, you went 2-1. And Sheffield United just had to win this game if they had any chance of staying up in this division. I still think put them in like a very, very slim chance. I think they're gone pretty much. But in terms of going to one of their rivals and taking all 3 points, they got the job done. And Luton will be very, very disappointed with this result. I mean, especially in the second half, Luton absolutely destroyed Sheffield United. They just couldn't put the ball in the back of the net.
Yeah, but I was very surprised with how open Luton were. Like Cameron Archer was finding all sorts of opportunities in that first half, and it looked like it was only a matter of time before he was going to put one in the back of the net, and they ended up taking the lead. And I think Luton weren't as solid as they usually are at home. Usually they base themselves over being very, very difficult to break through, very hard to play against. But Sheffield, maybe Luton felt like Sheffield United at home, they're going to open up a bit, play a bit more attacking football.
Bit of complacency, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. And they felt like it would be an easier win. Sheffield United took full advantage of that. I always felt like they were going to give them a bit of a difficult game, given how Sheffield United like to play, and especially in that little tight pitch. But I did think Luton would come up with the result in the end, but they unfortunately fell to a really bad defeat. And I hope for them it doesn't halt their momentum, because they've been going really well before this defeat and looking like they had a real chance of staying up. But losing at home to the bottom side is always going to take a bit of a hit. So we'll see how they recover. I still think, will they have enough to hold off Everton in the bottom? I still think it's unlikely, but they definitely have a really good shot at it. But this defeat will definitely be a big blow. In terms of Sheffield United, they did win. Kind of keeps them hanging in by a thread. They're now level of points with Burnley, so they can overtake Burnley and start catching up points on Everton and Luton. That'll be the next step. But I still, again, they're going to need to put a run together, and whether they'll do that, I find it very unlikely.
Yeah, I feel like those two teams are down, to be honest, and there's one spot left up for grabs. But you never know. There's still quite a lot of football left to be played, 14, 15 games. So there is a chance that, Sheffield United can put that run together, but I just find it so hard to see it, to be honest. Let's go on to the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium as Spurs beat Brighton by 2-1. Sim went for 5-2. I went for 3-1 to Tottenham. And Spurs got that last-minute winner in a game that just swung in, had loads of momentum switches, didn't it? Like at the beginning of the first half, Brighton looked the much better side, and Spurs came back into it in the latter stages of that first half. Spurs then started that second half as much the stronger team. And then Brighton came back into it right at the end and had a couple of chances where they could have snatched that winner, but it was Spurs against a run of play who took that winner at the last gasp of the game.
Yeah, and it was, as you say, it was a really up and down game, toing and froing, a really good game of football, and it wasn't quite the goal fest I expected. I maybe expected Brighton to be a bit more open than they were, and it took Tottenham a lot of time to get into the game after Brighton did take the lead with an early penalty through Pascal Gross, but Tottenham did regain control and obviously equalised at the beginning of the second half, and then after they equalised, they brought Son on, they brought Basuma and Johnson on, and they looked like they were just going to go on and win the game at that point. But Brighton had other ideas, and they made some changes. They switched things up, and they regained control of that game. And it seemed at that point Brighton were putting pressure on Spurs, and maybe they were going to go on to win the game. But as you say, the man, Mr. Clutch, performed a brilliant assist right at the end of the game to get Brennan Johnson's winner. And Spurs did take all 3 points and now back into the top 4 for Tottenham. So really brilliant win for them. Really help Spurs build some momentum going into the last 14 games of the season to take that 4th place and get into the Champions League, which would be a brilliant achievement in Postecoglou's first season in charge. So as much as it wasn't the best performance in the world, it's a really, really important win considering, they're getting all these players back. For Brighton, not a great result, obviously. Still only 1 point off 7th place Newcastle, which is obviously the final Conference League spot. So if they can get Conference League football next season, that would be a positive. If they get 2 consecutive seasons in Europe, which is probably the first time that's ever happened for Brighton.
Last year was the first time ever in Europe.
So there you go. So, I mean, I don't think they can complain too much. Obviously, it's a bit of a disappointment considering last season they got into the Europa League, and they're still in the Europa League, and I wouldn't completely rule them out of doing something special in that tournament. So I still think they're having a good season, but down in 9th, I think the chances of being back in the Europa League for next season are diminishing a bit.
Yeah, I agree with that, but I think the Conference League spot will go to Newcastle as well, seeing as Newcastle do only have 1 game a week. I mean, they're still in the Cup, aren't they? The FA Cup, or are they out?
FA Cup, yeah.
So they're still in the FA Cup, but I think, with them being out of Europe, I think that will stand them in good stead for this race for the Conference League and maybe even push for the Europa League, Newcastle, from now to the end of the season. But I feel like it might be a step too far with Brighton still being in the Europa League. Next up, we go to Molineux as Wolves lost by 2-0 at the hands of Brentford. Sim went for 1-1. I went for 2-1 to Wolves. Again, completely wrong in this game. It's the Premier League. You just can't predict it. And look, it was a game where Wolves had all the possession. They had a number of chances throughout the game, but Brentford just kept catching them on the break and got the all-important goals. Ivan Toney back on the score sheet. Norgard scored as well. And you got to give credit for Brentford. They stuck in their shape. They sprung on Wolves and they got a good victory.
Yeah, and I think it's the game swung at a certain point because it was 1-0 to Brentford after they scored an early goal, and then Wolves were piling on the pressure, looking to get the equaliser, and it seemed as though they did get it. Craig Dawson heads home from a corner, and it seemed as though that pressure told them maybe if that goal would have counted, they would have gone on to win the game. Unfortunately, VAR rules it out, and Brentford very quickly after that moment went on and scored a second. And Wolves, again, this is what I say about them. They're a very good team, but they're very good at playing counter-attacking football. They don't like teams also trying to sit back against them and ask them to break them down. When they're asked to do that, they do tend to struggle more often than not, and that's what Brentford did. I think it was a really good away performance from Brentford, played the game to perfection, played with that 3-at-the-back system, matched up Wolves in that formation, made it very, very difficult for them to break them down, just made sure that they made Pedro Neto and Cunha very, very quiet, didn't give them the space they usually get against other sides who try to attack them. And then when you got Ivan Toney in the forward line, you've always got a chance of making something happen, and that's exactly what they did. So really great away performance. And since Toney's been back, Brentford definitely look like a bit of a new team this season.
Absolutely. I mean, look, he's just got star quality, hasn't he? I think he's much above the level of the team that he's playing for. In my opinion, he should be playing for a top 4 side in the Champions League. That's the quality of the player, and that's massive advantage to Brentford in that area of the league.
And I think they won a run of 5 defeats in a row before he came in. They've now won 2 games out of 4 since he's come in, and any kind of fears that they might get dragged into a relegation battle probably eased by now.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's go to the City ground as Nottingham Forest lost by 3-2 at the hands of Newcastle. Sim went for 2-2, very close to that one, to be fair. I went for 2-1 to Newcastle, so I get a point on the board for this one. A very topsy-turvy game. This game was 2-2 by half-time. Fabian Schär getting on the score sheet once again for Newcastle. And it's a weird one because Newcastle scored 3 goals with like an XG of 0.48 or something crazy like that. And Nottingham Forest actually played really well in this game, creating chances, but it's not Newcastle that take over the 3 points.
Yeah, it's very disappointing for Forest because they were doing such a good job of catching Newcastle in transition, playing the ball very quickly to Morgan Gibbs-White, who would play the ball to Awioni or Anthony Elanga and cause problems for Newcastle, because Newcastle came with a game plan to dominate the ball, try and break Forest down, and Forest knew that, and they played a really good transitional game, and they caught Newcastle out twice in that first half. Obviously, you got a bit of luck with the Hudson-Odoi deflection, but the first one for Elanga, really nice move, good through ball as well. And Newcastle was really struggling to deal with it. But again, this game hinged on a very crucial moment. At 2-2 in the second half, the goalkeeper, the new goalkeeper, I can't remember his name for Forest, who was making his debut, Sells. He plays a long ball through to Awioni. He goes through one-on-one with the goalkeeper. He stumbles a bit, takes the ball past the goalkeeper. I think he's fouled. I think it should have been a penalty to Nottingham Forest. You can see the goalkeeper lifts his arm up against Awioni, trips him up, and VAR for some reason doesn't get involved. It feels like it wasn't a clear and obvious decision. I probably feel like it's right for VAR not to get involved, but I think it was a mistake for the referee not to give a penalty. I think that should have been a penalty to Forest. And if they go 3-2 up at that point, it would have been very difficult for Newcastle to come back. But didn't give the penalty. Newcastle got up the other end literally within a couple of minutes, and Bruno Guimaraes scores the winner after he scored, by the way, a brilliant set-piece routine in the first half, which is something I've done before. A little pass to Trippier, cross to the back post, and a great volley. He's done that previously for Newcastle, so something to look out for maybe in future matches for Newcastle. But Bruno Guimaraes showing his star quality, and it was very interesting after the game. He was kissing the badge, looking to ward off any rumours of him leaving in the near future, saying how happy he is. And he's a big player for Newcastle, and there is rumours with FFP they might have to sell, but if they were to lose him, that would be a massive blow because he's obviously their most important player probably.
Yeah, and he showed kind of qualities in this game which he hasn't shown all season, or he's shown in a Newcastle shirt. He's not been associated since joining Newcastle with goals or assists, but brilliant goals on the weekend, that's for sure. And if he can kind of add that to his game, what a player they have there. And I think he's a great player anyway.
It's weird about Newcastle. They just seem to have lost this defensive solidity they had last season. They were such a good defensive side, but they seem to be very, very leaky this season. They did get the win, but it wasn't the most impressive display yet again. So whether that win papers over the cracks, we'll see going forward. But in terms of Forest, it would have been so good to at least got something out of this game, because if they would have got a draw, would have taken them a bit further away from Luton Everton. Unfortunately, that loss still keeps them right in the thick of it, only 2 points above Everton in the relegation zone. So look, with Awioni back and the way they're playing, they're playing okay under Nuno, even though they're not maybe getting the results over the last few games. I still see some positive things, but they haven't won, I don't think, since that United game. I think that was that his first game, or second game. So 4 games out of win now, so a bit worrying, but with Awioni, Morgan Gibbs-White, Elanga, there is quality in that front line.
Elanga, 11 goal contributions this season. When you're looking, he's a player that Man United just got rid of. He's looking a lot better than someone like Anthony at the moment, isn't he?
100%. I mean, if Anthony was having 11 goal contributions this season, he would probably be getting a lot of praise. So Elanga showing maybe what Man United are missing, and he's having a bit of a rebirth now at Forest, getting that confidence back, being one of the main players, and he's looking really, really confident and really good. So fair play to him.
In terms of the relegation race, maybe we'll get into that after the Palace game, but I do think Forest are bang in trouble at the moment. I really do. But let's go on to West Ham against Arsenal. A drubbing at the London Stadium, 6-0 to Arsenal in what was Arsenal's record away Premier League victory. Sim went for 2-1 to Arsenal. I went for 1-1 in an embarrassing prediction by me, to be fair. But look, the game was 4-0 at half-time. 3 set pieces for Arsenal going into the game. Completely lucky victory for Arsenal. Arsenal were absolutely heavily dominant. They absolutely smashed West Ham throughout the 90 minutes from start to finish. And You know what? This was an embarrassing performance by West Ham. Some of the defending on show from West Ham was nothing short of embarrassing, and they need to hold their heads in shame, to be honest, some of those defenders of West Ham.
Yeah, it's a weird one for Arsenal because I think they score so many goals from set pieces. I believe I read a stat, I don't know if it's true, but 72% of their goals this season have come from set pieces, like penalties or corners or free kicks, which is an incredible amount when you think about it.
They're just a glorified Bolton.
Exactly. But as you say, they really look like they're stepping up again now, Arsenal, over the last few weeks. It was very important for them after beating Liverpool at home that they needed to follow that up with a convincing victory at West Ham, and it was probably more than that. And in terms of belief that they're back in the title race, it must be fully there now, because when you beat Liverpool and then you follow up by battering a difficult West Ham team where you expect a hard game, and you're 4-0 up at half time, that's going to definitely instill belief in the Arsenal camp that they're banging this title race now after such a convincing victory. It was a real weird game though, because for about half an hour, 35 minutes, I think Arsenal had the lead, but it was like, yeah, Arsenal were dominating, but it wasn't like a peppering. But then for some reason, West Ham just completely collapsed in those last 10 minutes of the first half, conceded 3 very quick goals, 2 set pieces, and Trossard made it a 4th as well, I think, after Saka won a penalty. So after that collapse, obviously the game was over by half time, and it was always going to be about damage limitation. In the second half, they couldn't even do that well. And obviously Declan Rice scoring an absolute worldie against his old club from 30 yards. Well. Yeah, unbelievable performance from him. And going back to West Ham, I'm sure he would have absolutely loved that performance. But it comes from West Ham. The reason why, I know that, like, if you look at their position, you might say, look, there can't be that many complaints about Moyes and stuff like that, but it's just when you've got such good players like they do. I look at their squad and they do have a good squad. I don't care what anyone says. Like Bowen and Kudus, there's some good players there. Ward-Prowse, Calvin Phillips. I think it's comparable. Yeah. I think it's comparable to Aston Villa for sure. And the way David Moyes plays, if you're going to be leaky at the back like they were yesterday, there's literally nothing else to fall back on, and you're going to get completely outplayed. And that's exactly what happened. They should be doing a lot more with those players. They should be getting a lot more out of Bowen and Kudus, getting them a lot more involved in taking, not obviously going gung-ho, but being a lot more in the game against a team like Arsenal. And that performance was an absolute disgrace, and the knives were out for David Moyes obviously after this game. I do think he'll last the season. I don't think he's going to get sacked this season, but the talks of a new contract I think are ridiculous. I think you should look, he won the trophy last season. I think he's taken West Ham as far as he can go. I think it's time to part ways at the end of the season. Let him see out the season. Let's see what he can do in the Europa League. But I think once the season's out, West Ham need to be upgrading, because just think about what a new manager with fresh ideas, someone who's going to be more attacking, someone who's going to be more on the front foot, can do with the squad that they have. I think he can do a lot more than what Moyes is doing.
Graham Potter's perfect for them. I don't understand why they didn't go for him at the end of last season. Moyes, go out with your head held high after winning a trophy, and use the squad to the fullest advantage and bring in Graham. I know, did he start the season at Chelsea, Graham Potter? No, he didn't. So why wouldn't they not go for Graham Potter in the summer? Because I think it's a perfect fit.
Because they stuck with Moyes, because he won the trophy, and they decided to respect that and keep his job. He wanted to stay. I think it was a mistake. I think the way they play isn't going to progress them. It's only going to get them so far, and I think they've reached their ceiling. I don't see them getting any better than they are right now.
There's only one way now for West Ham, and that is down.
Yeah, and so
with David Moyes. And look, West Ham, like what you consider them to be as a defensively solid team, especially from set pieces, that performance was nowhere. I know it's against a good Arsenal side, but it was nowhere near up to standard. And everyone involved in that West Ham performance should be ashamed.
I think it's 6 games out of winning all competitions now for West Ham. So they are definitely starting to slide. It was only not long ago they beat Arsenal away and they were knocking on the door of top 4, but obviously that collapsed now. I think it's definitely top 4 is goodbye. In terms of top 6, 5 points in it, so not completely out of it, but the form they're on, I just don't see them catching them.
No chance. I think they're going to keep slipping down the table now until something changes, because Moyes is just not the right manager for them, and after that's going to be such a damaging defeat to them. You can't lose 6-0 at home, no matter who it's against. But let's go to Villa Park, as Manchester United won by 2-1 against Aston Villa. Both of us went for 2-2. Look, this game was a robbery by Manchester United, a complete robbery. Aston Villa were the better side throughout. Man United scored against the run of play twice in this game, and I just don't know how Villa didn't score more than 1 goal.
I wouldn't say the first goal was against the run of play. I actually thought they were probably the better team in the early exchanges at Man United. They were causing Villa a lot of problems from corners. Harry Maguire was getting on the end of quite a few of them, and it looked like a matter of time.
Pieces,
yeah,
really.
it was, but they were still in the game, and they were still, I wouldn't say massively the better side, but it wasn't a massive surprise when they did take the lead. And it was a very transitional game in that first half. Both teams were kind of hitting each other in the transition. It was about who was going to get the early goal, and obviously Højlund for 5 goals in consecutive games now, in 5 consecutive games. So he's really hit a hot streak for him. And it was obviously good opening period for Villa, but for United. But once Villa took control, it was literally all Aston Villa up until pretty much the end of the game, even until United scored. It looked like it was a matter of time before Villa equalised. Onana was making save after save at some points. Watkins missed a few really, really good chances. And Villa will be kicking themselves after they equalised. They just let this game slip because they were well on top. Man United were really struggling to get into the game and come back from it. But when you don't kill off teams and you don't put away your chances, that's always likely to happen when you face a team, for whatever you want to say about Man United. They got quality in there. And Scott McTominay, yet again, coming off the bench, scoring a late goal. I think he's making a real habit of that this season. I read a stat, he's earned United 12 points with his goals this season, which is an astonishing amount for one player, especially a player like McTominay, to be earning. It shows how important he's been for Man United this season.
Top of the goal scoring charts for Scotland in the Nations League or the qualifiers as well. I mean, this guy is coming in clutch for Man United and Scotland. It's incredible.
7 Premier League goals this season. And maybe it's just a case of he's been misprofiled for a lot of the season. A lot of people are now saying, is he the new Marouane Fellaini kind of player for Man United?
That's exactly what he is.
I think a lot of people before thought he was like an 8 box or a 6 kind of in sitting midfielder, but now maybe he's going to be rebranded as a more kind of Fellaini, big strong number 10 who you can lump the ball to and make late runs to the box and get on the end of things. And he's really providing an effective way of winning games for Man United. So really big win for them. But again, it is a good win, and on the face of it, that is 3 Premier League wins in a row for them. So you could say they're now building some momentum, but still those away performances against Wolves and Villa, as much as they did get wins, I'm just still not convinced by them. I'm still not convinced by the control.
It was a fairly good performance against Wolves, though. It was the latter stages of the game. The last 10 minutes, I thought Wolves were by far the better team, but I think for 80 minutes in that game, they played fairly well.
Yeah, but it's a pattern. I saw them do that against Copenhagen. They were 3-1 up and ended up losing 4-3 after playing really well. So it's a pattern for Man United where they are very brittle. When they're looking good and confident, they can play well and get in the lead. But as soon as things start to turn against them, it's really hard for them to stem that tide. And more often than not, they do succumb to the pressure. So whether or not that will keep, they can change that and get some consistency, we'll have to wait and see. But that is 3 wins in a row, and Højlund is bang in form. So you got to say, maybe there are signs of things turning for Man United, although I'm still not convinced.
Next 2 games for United is Luton away and Fulham at home. I mean, if they can take 6 points in those next 2 games, which they probably expect themselves to do so, I think they put themselves in the top 4 conversation massively.
Yeah, probably.
So, and I do think Man United do finish above Aston Villa this season.
Their last 2 games this season, they were Arsenal and Brighton away. So, they need to make sure that they're in a really good position come those last 2 games.
Yeah, absolutely. But let's move on to the last game of the weekend, which was Monday Night Football at Selhurst Park. A very much depleted Crystal Palace against Chelsea. It was 3-1 to Chelsea on the night. Sim went for 3-0. I went for 2-0. I mean, this was one of the most drab first halves I've ever seen. Chelsea were pretty embarrassing, to be honest, in that first half. Jefferson Lerma scores an absolute screamer to put Crystal Palace 1-0 up. And I don't know what it was for Chelsea in that first half. They just didn't want to do anything. It was really strange. But, things did change in that second half, didn't they? They got the goal fairly quickly, and then they had to wait for the stoppage time to get the winners and get a third goal as well. But Conor Gallagher scoring 2 goals on the night. Enzo Fernandez back on the score sheet as well. These 2 players really coming up for Chelsea now, aren't they?
Yeah. Obviously, Conor Gallagher scored his first goal of the season in midweek in the Cup, and he followed that with 2 goals fairly similar in terms of making a late run into the box and getting good finish. And he's always been capable of that. For some reason or for one reason or another this season, it hasn't quite gone in for him. But he's always got that capability of making a difference and being effective in that penalty area, which he did show quite ironically for Palace, which is probably what when he showed his best kind of goal scoring form. And for some reason, when he's gone back to Chelsea, it hasn't quite happened, but he showed signs of that changing. And obviously, a very similar goal in midweek as well, late one in the box. So will we see Conor Gallagher be getting more goals now from now to the end of the season? I wouldn't be surprised. It was a big win for Chelsea because they wanted to build momentum off the back of that big win against Villa, which everyone is saying could be a turning point for them. And if they would have followed that with a 1-0 defeat to Palace, or a draw even,
to that Palace side,
Palace side, which no Elise, no Eze, a couple players making their debuts as well, the knives would have been back out for Poch. So the fact they got that late win was very, very important to keep momentum going. And look, maybe they'll start picking up some regular points now. It was a very good win at the end of the day. They made that pressure tell in the second half. And yeah, they were terrible in the first half. They still had a lot of possession, just weren't able to even get near the Palace goal. But that did change in the second half. They stepped up, and obviously Cole Palmer late in the game getting another 2 assists. Now it's 20 goal contributions for him. So what an outstanding season Cole Palmer is having.
Yeah, no, absolutely. He's been a star this season. A lot of those goals have been penalties. I think he scored like 6 or 7 penalties or something this season. Maybe it's not that many, but a lot of them,
at least 5.
Yeah, a lot of them have been penalties for Cole Palmer this season, but I don't think that takes away. Like, he is instrumental to that Chelsea side. He's the one that's more or less putting them through in the games where they need him to. But Chelsea have a clear problem with breaking down these low blocks. They just can't seem to do it on a consistent basis. They did well in the second half to finally do it and get the win at the latter stages of the game. But another day, maybe those chances don't come. But maybe there is a turning point here with Chelsea and Pochettino. But still, like, you're looking at them, where are they? 10th in the league, 34 points. Only 2 points behind 7th in Newcastle. So maybe they do make a late push for the Conference League or something like that.
Yeah, I still think it's a bad season if they finish 7th, but it's a lot better than, being in mid-table, not getting Europe at all. So at least if they can do that, take some sort of momentum into next season with European football. But I do think top 4 is definitely gone for them. We know that. They're 13 points away. I can't see them getting anywhere near that. Maybe Europa League could be a shout.
That's a bit of a stretch, I think.
They're 7 points away from Man United. It's going to be a tall order even for that, I agree. So I think Conference League probably has to be their aim now for now to the end of the season.
Surely they play Man United from now to the end of the season. Maybe if they beat Man United, there's a chance, but I can't see it, to be honest. And Crystal Palace are bang in trouble. Like 5 points above the drop at this stage of the season. Elise out, Eze out, Guehi out. All these big players for them, all not playing at the moment. You just don't see where a win's coming from for Crystal Palace.
100%. I look at the teams below them, and as long as Eze and Elise are out, I see them picking up more points in Palace, and the fans are turning a bit toxic as well. I can see Hodgson; he's getting very frustrated with some of the fan reaction to him and his tactics and stuff like that. He was saying after the game, "I hope fair-minded fans are realistic and understand the situation." It's like, well, so you're basically saying anyone who's complaining is not a fair-minded fan, like, you know what I mean? He's kind of not doing himself any favors. Sorry, Roy Hodgson. He's not really saying the right things, and it's turning more and more people against them. I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't last the season at this rate, because I do see them. I wouldn't be surprised as long as Eze and Olise and Guehi are all out, they start to drop like a stone.
Yeah, I want to see who their next few games are, because I don't understand how they get points with they got Everton away next. That is a massive game. If Everton beat them, then that closes the gap even more to the drop. And after that, they got Burnley at home. Did they even beat Burnley with the way Burnley can attack? I think Burnley can take something out of that game.
Touch and go.
They've got massive games over the next 3 games, and then they go to us, Tottenham away, and then Luton at home after that. So they've got 3 incredibly big games in their next 4 games.
Yeah, and if they can't pick up points in those games, they're banging trouble. Absolutely. So I think it's worrying times for Palace at the moment, just the way things are going for them.
Yeah. Do you think they will get relegated?
No, because I do think at some point Elise and Eze will come back, and they'll just have they just need maybe 3 or 4 wins out of these last 14 games will be enough. And if he can come back and get those wins, that should be enough. So I think they might just scrape it, but I think it's going to be tight.
They're probably praying for these points deductions for Nottingham Forest and Everton, because that will be a gift from God for them. You know what I mean? Because if that happens, then they probably are safe.
Yeah.
But star men, Sim went for Turbo Timo. did nothing on the day. I went for Elijah Adebayo again, who did nothing on the day. Did win a penalty, but didn't get a goal or an assist.
Oh, it was never a penalty. Both those penalties were shocking decisions, I thought.
The ref pointed to the spot, and it was a penalty.
Never a penalty.
But 0 points on the day, which leaves us very, very close going into the last 14 games of the season. Sim's got 288 points. I've got 290 points. Let me know in the comment section below your thoughts of the weekend's fixtures, and we'll see you next time.